All right, okay. I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting of December 11th, 2023. According to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, we'll be going into executive session. What's the motion in that regard?
So moved.
Second.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Call for a vote, please. Mr. Mickelson?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. 4-0. We will go into executive session and return here as close to 6:30 as possible. Thank you very much. I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting of December
11th.
according to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21. This is an open meeting, beginning here in room 304. Announcement of recording of a meeting. If we have a fifth member who is on Zoom, we will vote individually. If not, we'll vote as a group. At this point in time, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain seated as we honor our veterans, both past and present.
Standing, David.
Okay. How are we doing so far? Please remain seated.
Good.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks very much.
Okay, there'll be no more of that.
We can only go up from here.
It's a great start. Okay. We are going to take one quick diversion on our agenda. We're going to ask Peter Chase, here he is, and his cohort regarding the announcement of the Christmas telethon notification. They've asked, please come forward. Won't take long, but sure.
Do you talk about other stuff beforehand?
Want to go right to, well, let's see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kyle Costa from the Police Department. I'd like to thank not only you, all the board members, as well as Mr. McGinnis and the school committee for taking a few minutes out of, just allowing us to take a couple of minutes before they get their business started. Just wanted to make the announcement again, per usual. It's hard to believe a year's gone by, but we'll be conducting the Fill the Bus toy drive at Target this upcoming Saturday, December 16th from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. As we know, last year it took on a whole another animal when Pete Chase from Dartmouth Community Media set up the telethon. The effort was not only humbling for me as the first person to ever start this thing up, but it was a resounding success. So I'd like to thank the board very much for giving us the time to at least acknowledge this tonight and make the announcement for the toy drive. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Peter?
And then, so then part of it is also the telethon, which the telethon will be happening from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday. You're all welcome to attend. Come on down. We'll get you on. You can talk to the community at large. We'll be live streaming it on our YouTube channel and also on our channel 18. So any elected officials that want to come down, come on down. We'll love to get you on. And then also this year, we're trying to do a staff karaoke hour. So we've gotten a few staff members to do it. So there's some school committee school staff in here. So if you want to do some karaoke, let us know. We're doing it from 11 to 12. Come on down. We'll get you right on.
Tryouts first for the karaoke.
Throw you on.
You're trying to raise money, aren't you?
Well, we figured then it would get them to stop singing.
Get the hooks ready.
I'll be bringing a check not to sing.
I'll contribute to that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, and one other thing, I'm sorry, I forgot. DHS TV Media is also a great partner in this. So that through the school system and Mr. Parati, all the students do camera. And we got 4 students host this year, so it'll be great. And they were always great. And then we're going to do some entertainment from the school. We got the band, the orchestra, pre-recorded stuff, and some other highlights from the school department as well.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to approach and thank all you in person. It's going to be my last year. Jeez. It's hard to believe it's coming to an end. And it'd be nice if I could just thank all of you for the years of support that you've offered, not only to me, but to the police department on the whole.
Congratulations.
More importantly, thank you for everything that you've done.
What a job.
Before Kyle goes too far away, I just want to mention that him taking over not only social media, but also just being the face or behind the scenes of the police department and getting the police department in that community policing mode has done a lot to bridge our community. So I thank you. And this toy drive, just one example of the spearheading that you did to promote good policing and getting the faces out there of the officers when it's not scary. So thank you.
Takes a village.
Yeah.
As usual, warm nugget from Mrs. Brooks. Okay. Okay. We, at this point in time, we have a very special event here. We have a joint meeting with our select board, with our school committee, and with our finance committee. And at this point, I think it would be appropriate that maybe we can introduce ourselves and go on down the line. Please do. You're on, Terry.
Terry Ham, Dartmouth Finance Committee.
Philip Lenz, Finance Committee.
Bill Bowles, Finance Committee.
Brian O'Hare, Finance Committee.
Janine Simmons, Finance Committee.
Bob Garvin, Chair of the Finance Committee. Gary Curl, Finance Director, Treasurer Collector.
Shannon Jenkins, School Committee.
Chris Oliver, Vice Chair of the School Committee.
Bess Coughlin, School Committee.
Kathleen Amaral, Chair of the School Committee. June Saban McGuire, Superintendent.
Jim Kiley, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Thank you. Well, we promised back in October, November that we'd meet again, and here we are. And I want to personally thank everyone who's participating to be here, because we've got a lot of work to do and a lot of decisions to make. So thank you all for attending, and we'll do it with an open mind. The first thing we thought we'd do is Mr. McGinnis is ready for a presentation. You've been given these notes. These are all brand new. Most of the stuff is put together within the last less than a week. I just would like to say that it's been a privilege and an honor to serve with our long-range planning committee, made up for the general public to know. We have a member from the finance committee, from the capital planning committee. We have from the select board, from the DPW, and of course Mr. Carrero, Mr. McGinnis, and who have I left out? Schools, Mr. Kiley. Excuse me. So it's been a real work in progress and a team effort. And everyone is trying to do what they think is the right thing, the best thing, and look at it from all angles. So thank you all for participating, and we got some work ahead of us to do. So thank you. Mr. McGinnis, you ready?
Yes, sure. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. So you know me, Sean McGinnis. Just to kind of preface this, we were here last year as the budget cycle going through that, and there was a budget deficit with the school. That was out of the school's control. There's a lot of factors that are in that line, and we found a way to bridge the gap last year, but we knew coming into this year it would be more difficult. So I think Mr. Kiley knew that, Mrs. Saban McGuire knew that, myself and the select board. So along with the long-range planning committee. So we thought it was important this year to really take a look at the school and their budget and their needs, and not try to bridge gaps anymore, and really try to look at, the town supports the school, the select board, the school committee, the residents. So what can we do to kind of bring this school back up to speed, so we're not here every year kind of talking about, funding the school and not being able to, or finding ways to do that. So with that, we put our heads together and we came up with some numbers, but I'll go through this as quickly as possible tonight. So just an overview. I'll give an overview of kind of the budget, the general budget, expenditures review, revenues, talk about the school's budget, support and challenges, what the school is projecting for the FY25 budget, what are some funding options to evaluate. A lot of people ask, when there's a budget crunch or there's a budget deficit, people always bring up certain options. I'll try to go over those options tonight and talk about what might be viable. And then what are some of the challenges beyond 25? So we can't just look at every year and then reapproach the same problem again. We want to look at it and say, how can we solve the problem moving forward? And then we'll talk about some other challenges along that lines, as health insurance and long-term capital. So I'll try to go through these quickly. If anyone wants me to stop if I'm going too fast. A lot of this is just general budget information, but our general fund is our operating expenses. They go to these departments: schools, public safety, public works, community services, general government, debt service, benefits, insurance. This is where all the expenses are for the town. This does not include DPW enterprise funds or any enterprise funds. How are those operating expenses divided up? You can see the schools, and this includes the folk school and the Aggie school, but they get 57% of the town's budget. And then on top of that, if you look in red, benefits, that's another 60% of the town's budget. That's a lot of expense, and the benefits is health insurance, pensions, things like that. So that's, those two items are a big chunk of our expenses. When we look at revenues, what does the town have for revenues? It's mainly property taxes. We do get some state aid, local receipts, which are excise tax, motor vehicle excise tax, boat excise, restaurant meals tax, overhead indirect costs, and any other available funds like investment income would be under that. How are operating revenues divided? You can see 71% of that is property taxes, so that is the majority of our revenues. State aid is 14% of that. So, but aside from that, it's really property taxes that are the main revenue generator for the town. How do property taxes relate to Proposition 2.5? If you don't know, Proposition 2.5 limits any municipality's ability to increase the levy, the tax levy. So we can increase the tax levy 2.5% every year. Other than that, how do we generate revenue? It's either through new growth or overrides. And new growth is development that happens in town that increases the tax base and assessment for that property. Once the levy limit is increased in any of these ways, though, the increased levy amount becomes the base, and then every year you can build up 2.5% of that base. How do our property taxes relate to Proposition 2.5? It's 96% is our base levy. So it's really, I'm trying to just kind of drive home that property taxes are the main revenue generator in town. New growth, you heard me mention that. That relates to development. You can see our new growth is pretty flat. It's about, we estimate about $600,000 a year. Sometimes it's above, sometimes it's below. If you look back at FY 15, 16, 17, those were years where South Coast really did a lot of development in town, which was great. But that was really extraordinary, and we don't anticipate seeing that, but we do see little blips here and there. But you can see that's pretty steady. We talked about this last year. What are some of the challenges for the schools? Even with increased town financial support, the per pupil spending is below state average. I mean, those are just the facts. And we're below the state average in teacher spending, insurance and benefits, school administration, operations and maintenance, and the overall budget. So we are aware of that. At an administrative level, and the select board and certainly the school committee and Mr. Kiley and Ms. Saber-Wogard are very well aware. We like to use comparable communities for a lot of the things we look at here in Dartmouth. When we talk about comparable communities, we don't look at Westport or Fairhaven or New Bedford. Those are not comparable communities to Dartmouth. We look at towns that are similar in size and population, in budgets, and assessed value. So, this is from last year. This is net school spending. And when we look at, you look at the enrollment of these comparable communities, Canton, Danvers, Wakefield, Dartmouth's right in line with that. You can see net school spending. Dartmouth, while they're above the state minimum net school spending, they're really low compared to our comparable communities, very low. When you look at some of the other communities like Canton and Danvers and Wakefield, we're much lower than them. So, this is something we need to evaluate about, how, are we funding the schools? So when we, just as a review of last year's 2024 school budget, we started with $50,908,000. We did a transfer from the borrowing account to fund the gap that we had with the school. And then at town meeting, there was a one-time transfer amendment requested for $99,275. So the final for this fiscal year school budget was $51,595,598. So when we're talking with Mr. Kiley and Ms. Saber-Maguire and Gary Carrero, our finance director, we wanted to look at the school's budget for FY25 to say, what do we need to fund to get back to a level service budget, a restorative budget? So Mr. Kiley sat down, sharpened his pencil, and looked at it, and he identified these items that really needed to increase in order to satiate FY25. That was special education tuition, a 5% increase, a transportation contract renewal. This is an estimate because he hasn't finalized the contract yet. Legal services is going to go up because Mr. Smith is retiring. Congratulations. And there's a number of positions that were formerly funded by ESSER funding that need to be incorporated. Excuse me. So the estimated FY25 level service budget would go up to $54,483,501. On top of that, we talked about what does it take to have a restorative level service budget. There are some modest changes that need to be made on the school level. And you can see here, Mr. Kiley provided this. There's some additions, some subtractions. Mainly some new additions would be an ESL teacher. I'll go through this list. If you want detail on it, Mr. Kiley is much better person to get the detail on it. But 2 new positions, the ESL teacher, behavioral specialist. Our technology, $200,000. This is something that's been funded annually through the capital plan. But if it's done every year annually, it should really be in their operational budget. So we're just trying to clean that up, and I think it's a much better way to budget for that equipment. Atlas 1822 transition program funding, $25,000, and curriculum materials for $150,000. But you can see Mr. Kiley and Mrs. Saban-McGuire are eliminating 2 elementary school teachers. That's about $70,000 each. The school nurse that was funded through ESSER, as well as a teacher, and also the secretary to the superintendent. So for a proposed changes to FY25 of an increase of $181,190, which is very modest on a $54 million budget. So this is just to kind of recap that. The new budget, $54,483. The proposed changes, $181,000. So FY25 proposed, Mr. Kiley and Mrs. Saban-McGuire are estimating it's going to be about $54,664,000. You heard me talk about earlier, well, we should really look in the future. So we're not back here the same time next year saying, how are we going to bridge this gap? So Mr. Kiley looked at FY26 projecting increase, just try to do some estimating. Contracts are up, collective bargaining contracts, tuitions are going up, staffing, transportation. So he's estimating about another $825,000. And that's on top of a 3% increase on the FY25 budget that the school usually funds, so it's just above that. So it would be a 4.5% increase over FY25. So when we look at this as a whole, we're looking at about a $3 million increase over FY24, which is about 6%. Generally, what the town tries to do, we try to stay within Proposition 2.5. Generally, we've tried to fund the school at a little more, at about 3%. So if we estimate that on the municipal side we can fund 3%, a 3% increase of the school's budget, we have this gap like last year, but now it's $1.5 million. So we need to find a way to fund that. Excuse me. Now that's 1.5 for FY25. We heard me talk about FY26. That's another 4.5% increase. So for the 2 years combined, to bring the school back up to level service to a point where in 2 years we're here and we're able to budget for the school for a 3% increase and not over 4% or close to 5%, we'd be looking at about $2.3 million that we would need to come up with this year and next year to help fund that. For the 2 years. That's not each year. That is for 2 years, $2.3 million. This slide is interesting. It's a little busy. What I'm trying to show is the blue is the Proposition 2.5 trend line. The green has been the school's budget needs for these past years. FY 2020 was the last year the school was able to produce a budget that was about 2.5%. So we use that as a base. And you can see every year they need a little more, FY21. And when I say need, these are costs. I think you talk to anyone in the state that knows anything about finance, and Proposition 2.5 was great maybe in the 80s when they implemented it. It is, nothing goes up 2.5%. I think even our home expenses, everything goes up 5%, 10%. So trying to incorporate those costs while raising taxes just 2.5% can get difficult. And you see the issue compounds. So you get to 21, it's $400,000. They need above 2.5%. FY22, you need almost $1 million. FY23 is $2 million. So you can see we get to FY25, and the school's budget needs are almost, they're $4.7 million over just a Proposition 2.5 trend line. It's just not sustainable. So we really need to look at it big picture and say, how do we get back in line where we're back kind of along FY 2020? And we need to kind of bridge that gap by coming up with $2.3 million over the next 2 years. So what are the challenges? You heard me talk about them a little bit. We need to address the average annual budget increase of over 4%. We need to address the deficiency in net school spending, the deficiency in per pupil spending, And also, we need to address employee turnover related to compensation and benefits. This is a competitive time for all communities, and we're seeing that, we want highly qualified staff that are professionals. Certainly, that you want teachers and staff in the schools, the most highly qualified people we can. They're educating our kids. We certainly want the same thing on the municipal side to provide the best service to the public. It's a labor market out there now, so we have to be competitive, and we need to find ways to be competitive with compensation and health benefits. And just kind of reiterate this number, I'm trying to reinforce it. We need to get back to level service, we need $2.3 million. So here's where a lot of people come up with, well, let's just take it out of, free cash. That's not a problem. Or take it out of the stabilization fund. We can fund that. I'm going to go over some options that, some are viable, some not so viable, and I'll explain that. But these are generally the options that people bring up whenever there's a budget need. Utilizing free cash, staffing reductions. We talk about, our budget needs over 2 years, so we'd have to have staffing reductions over 2 years. Stabilization fund utilization, and a restorative override. So the first is free cash utilization. This is a little busy, this table, but basically FY25, I'm just doing, if we were just in an average year doing our average things, the school's budget increase is usually about 4.6%. The town can usually fund a 3% increase for the school, so we have that gap. Last year was 588. Along those lines, this year it would be 814. Next year it would be 1.6. The year after that it would be 2.6. So it really compounds. So if you wanted to use free cash, we average about $5 million in free cash every year. We'd be out of our free cash within 3 years if we wanted to utilize free cash to bridge this gap for the next few years. There might be a better way to look at it. The red line is our annual average free cash, which fluctuates because you can see on the right, we usually spend our capital on vehicle replacement, road and sidewalk repairs, building repairs, stabilization fund maintenance, and long-term capital stabilization fund this year, hopefully. There's no guarantee. As you heard me mention earlier, our free cash comes from local receipts, turnbacks, things like that. So it's not guaranteed, and it's very dependent on the economy. But you can see if we were, in FY24, we're at $5 million. If we were trying to bridge that school budget gap, by FY27, we'd have nothing left. Staffing reductions. Nobody likes to talk about that, and neither do we. Using the same chart to bridge this gap, FY25 would be $800,000. FY26 would be 1.6. These are just modest round numbers, but assuming $65,000 per position, in order to fund that, bridge that gap, would be 12.5 full-time employees for FY25. But then it compounds. So FY26, we'd have even more, so we'd be looking at 13.5 full-time positions that we would have to try to eliminate to bridge that cost. The eliminating positions is really the only way to steadily keep the budget down in perpetuity. So that's kind of how that works. The stabilization fund utilization, this is, if you don't know, this is our kind of the town's savings account. We're required to maintain a stabilization fund. That's about $11 million. It's really not to be utilized except for an event of an emergency or unforeseen events. It's really not meant to bridge gaps in your budget. But you can see it's the same trend. If we were going to do that or even start to dip into our stabilization fund, the way the budget needs are and the way they're increasing, that would be depleted by FY29. So really not an option. Fourth is a supplemental override. If we look at the average tax bill, if we were to have a tax Proposition 2.5 override for $2.34 million, on the average tax bill, the resident would be looking at about $149.60 per year. That's about $37.40 per quarter. Dartmouth's current FY23 tax rate, not the new one that was just set last month, is $8.78 per thousand. You heard me talk about comparable communities earlier. We do the same thing for our tax rate. So if we look at comparable communities to Dartmouth, their tax rates are around $11.60. This is just to give you a point of reference. The override required for us to go from our 878 tax rate to the comparable community's average tax rate at 1160 would be about a $23 million override. So we're not looking to do that, but you could do an awful lot with that money for a modest increase. Now, one thing you might look at is, well, Dartmouth's tax rate's low because we have fire districts. They're separate taxing authorities. Well, even if I incorporate the taxing for the fire districts, you can see we're still well below the average of our comparable communities. What are those comparable communities? A lot of them. And you can see they're all over the state. Very similar. You can see the populations are similar within a range. The tax levy is within a range, state aid, total budget, and the tax rates. The averages are down at the bottom. You can see Dartmouth up at the top. So we're pretty in line with those. And then when you look at the tax rate, you can see we're much lower than these other communities. And now you might say, well, maybe it's the assessment. Maybe, you can, if the assessment gets higher, the tax rate gets lower, vice versa. The economy and the real estate market has been great for all these communities. They're all in line. So that's not something that we would look at and say, well, that's really going to fluctuate a lot. The assessed values go up and down, but like every community in the state. So it's really the tax rate's a good indicator in this regard to show you that Dartmouth's pretty low compared to these communities. So I go back to if the town wanted to pursue a restorative override for $2.34 million, it's about $149.60 per year in extra on the average tax bill. Now that information is below. The average assessment is about $421,000. The average tax bill is $3,696. You can see $149.60 is, it's an increase, and we understand it's an increase to the property taxes, but it's a very modest increase for something that would get us a lot more bang for the buck with the schools. One thing with an override we do want to mention, an override requires town meeting approval and a town election approval. So it's not something that you can just push through quickly. It takes a lot to go through. So we'd have to look at, up here is our little calendar of events. The first stake is December 11th. That's our joint meeting. We may have to have another joint meeting on January 8th. The April election is April 2nd. That's our standard election. May 15th is when Mr. Kiley sends out teacher employment notices, and our June town meeting is June 6th, I think. So that gets us to the end of the fiscal year. So if we wanted to pursue an override, we'd probably have to look at a special town meeting or a special election or both. So that's something, if that was an option that would garner some interest, we could come back with more detail on that. So just to review, how do we bridge the gap? Free cash utilization, 3 years, it would be depleted. Staffing reductions, that's an option. We'd be going through 2 years. That'd be almost 25 positions. I don't think that's something that we're interested in doing or would be beneficial to the community. Stabilization fund utilizations, just like free cash, it would be decimated within 4 years. And the restorative override, which is something to consider, but I think we've seen like overrides are not easy to pass through in a community. You have to have the community get behind the schools in the town, and I think they should. They've shown that they have in my meetings here. So something worth evaluating. But these are generally the 4 options that people bring up. We want to address them. We've looked at a number of different communities. This is generally what they look at as well. So beyond FY25, we still have challenges. Excuse me. Health insurance, it's a big issue in town. We've been trying to address it. It's very expensive. We realize that. It's an expense to the employees, but it's also an expense to the town. Trying to find that balance where the town can pick up some of those costs is not easy. The current health insurance split is 56-44, and that was a modest gain from last year. It's still, a tough pill to swallow for the average employee. When you get down to our second point here, the average annual health increase that we've seen is about 5% per year. We've been told to estimate about a 10% increase for next year for our health insurance costs. So no one stays within 2.5%. So, you heard me mention this earlier, recruitment and retainment of employees is very important. This is one of the aspects that can make a big difference in that aspect of recruitment and retainment. And also, just to prove, that these things aren't inexpensive, when we look at going from 56-44, that employee split for the HMO plan, and if we wanted to just change that to 60-40, seems pretty easy. When we run the numbers, that's about $1.7 million to do that for the town. That would be the cost of the town. So it's significant, and it's hard to find that money to make that modest gain when we're looking at budget cuts elsewhere and budget deficiencies elsewhere. So it's really hard, but these are the challenges we have moving forward. And we have some creative ideas to address these, but it takes time. We're really focused on the school's budget right now. As Mr. Talbot mentioned earlier, we have a long-term capital planning committee. They've been a great group. They've been getting together regularly, a lot of nice discussions about both very long-term planning and also dealing with these short-term issues like the school budget. You can see at the bottom the representatives, Select Board, Finance Committee, School Committee, Capital Planning Committee, Town Administration and Finance, and the Board of Public Works. So it's a nice group, covers most of the town. And what are we looking at? What the top left is long-term capital needs. Excuse me, we still have those. The Payne-Narren Bridge, the middle school, the high school, recreation center has been proposed. The COA is looking to do major improvements at their facility. So these are long-term needs. And the next block's over. It's a 30 to 40-year implementation schedule. A lot of times when people hear these numbers for the bridge, the school, $20 million, when you schedule it out over time, the borrowing schedules are longer. The impact, there is an impact, but it's not as significant as people think. The town is not paying $25 million next year. So it's really over a 30 to 40-year schedule. You schedule the projects out so that to minimize the tax impact, and it can be affordable. We're also looking at evaluating water and wastewater long-term capital needs. We want to make sure that the utility rates can stay low, but also improving the infrastructure of our water and wastewater, and also meeting requirements of federal and state regulations to treat water and wastewater. And lastly, we would like to create a long-term capital stabilization fund this year. You heard me mention that earlier with our free cash. And that will help to offset the construction and borrowing costs. We think that's important because we're going to have to address some of these needs in the near future. That's what we have. That's where we're at. With that, is there any questions?
Okay.
Had his hand up.
Mr. Mullum, I think you had your hand up first.
I did.
Okay,
Thank you,
congratulations.
Mr. Tattlebaum. Thank you, Mr. McGinnis, for putting this together and getting us together. I think this is certainly an important topic, especially for the school department as well as for the town overall. I would like to just take a couple of minutes and just emphasize, to Mr. McGinnis's point, some of the data that was spoken about in regards to Dartmouth in the rest of the state and in the surrounding communities. We just came out of our school committee meeting. We just adjourned, and Mr. Kiley and Dr. Saban McGuire did a wonderful job of presenting the FY25 budget to us. We didn't get into discussion yet, so we haven't had the opportunity to have that discussion. However, it was a great presentation, and there was a couple of data points. If you don't mind me, I'll give Mr. Kiley credit for it. But let's keep in mind that this is Dartmouth Public Schools' overall spending. This is from the FY22 per pupil spending. Out of 322 districts in Massachusetts, Dartmouth ranks 266. That's from the bottom. So that's at the bottom. Teacher spending. Out of 322 districts, Dartmouth's 196. 322 districts on insurance and benefits in the state. So this is a big one for us. 316 out of 322. Out of our districts within a 25-mile radius, out of 30 districts, we are number 30 for insurance and benefits. Dart districts, which Mr. McGinnis, a little bit different than what Mr. McGinnis was saying in regards to comparable municipalities. These are comparable districts. We are number 12 out of 12 for insurance and benefits. Administrative spending, we are 288 out of 322. Once again, that's from the bottom. Operations and spending, 307 out of 322. So just a couple of data points there that I did want to share with everyone. I thought they were important to recognize as to see where we're at, and not to mention that the investment that people get in this community for the education, it's second to none based on these numbers. Just a couple of other quick thoughts that I have. I completely agree in regards to the technology piece and some of the other things we spoke about. My only thought on that would be, based on the town's own financial policies, it is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, that anything over $10,000 with a life expectancy of 5 years or more would be considered capital.
Well, we talked about that a little bit. A lot of it, in our discussions is Chromebooks. Those can be considered individual purchases.
Those could be considered individual
like large
purchases.
servers or large, one item costs that are over $10,000, then we would look at it and say, yeah, that should be on a capital.
Yeah, so your typical, and speaking from an IT background, your typical servers, your typical hardware, your big ticket items are going to be that. So that would certainly fall within that. I guess let's call out the elephant in the room right now. Everyone's very well aware, I think, sitting here, that the school department has a good amount of money in our school choice fund. Education is becoming more and more competitive. So we opened up school choice several years ago, and I think it was a great opportunity to bring our enrollment up higher. So that gave us the opportunity to collect school choice funds in a separate revolving account. At least from my perspective, I'm only speaking for myself right now, but I'm more than happy to look at funding some of these one-time expenses through our school choice funds, if that can help the town. I think everyone at this table here on the school committee certainly agrees. We want to work together with the town. We want to work together with the other departments. We know that I know the wastewater treatment plant is nearing capacity. I know that's going to be a big ticket item. So I think there is money there, and I certainly would want to try to spend that school choice money down to reasonable levels that we would be able to say, listen, no one's going to pay for an override. No one's going to spend money on an override if people are aware that the school department has X amount of money in school choice. So moving forward, I would certainly be comfortable spending that kind of money for one-time capital purchases out of school choice. Thank you.
Excuse me, what is that number?
It's approximately, Mr. Kiley, is it around?
Right now, we have about $2 million in the school choice fund, mostly because we didn't spend it during the pandemic because we had all the ESSER funding, the ARPA funding.
Okay.
So can I just follow up on that too? Again, trying to be consistent with town policies, right? We have been treating school choice funds as non-recurring revenue because the existence of school choice depends on an annual vote of the school committee. And so because of, you have a change of 2 or 3 people on the school committee and those funds go away. So I think if we're willing to sort of put our money on the table, we know that we need to do that, but I think we need to have a conversation about some flexibility around that. If we're gonna move recurring revenues, is technology and operational? Is it capital, right? How does that all align with the policies that we have put in place in this town? Because we do want to be consistent. We know that it's a bad idea to put recurring revenues on, or recurring expenses on non-recurring revenues. So I think that's part of the conversation that we all have to have.
Anybody over in finance? Not yet?
Well, I'd just like to say
Yes, sir.
that we have a subcommittee. We've had 2 people on the subcommittee in the past. Now we've added a 3rd person. And we have different skill sets. And we would like to meet our subcommittee for the school budget, to meet with the school committee's subcommittee and the superintendent and Jim to, we have a lot of questions. And we're not interested in answering them right now, but we want to get them answered. And we'd like to try to get them answered before the January 8th so we can understand this.
Yeah, I would just like to add at this point that the purpose of this meeting was not to dive deep into the numbers, but to come up with some kind of consensus of direction. And if that's one of the things we agree on, that'd be great. Any problem with that issue over there in the school committee in terms of, great.
No, Dr. Jenkins and I sit on the budget.
So we'll leave it up to,
Yep.
okay?
All right, I do have a question to Mr. McGinnis. Usually, Sean, when you give us the presentation, you also list the per capita income of these towns in comparison, because some towns obviously have more per capita income than others, and therefore they can pay more taxes than the others. So I was wondering, I've seen it before, you put it in other presentations, but you seem to have left it out of this one. And
I thought there's a number of factors we could look at when we look at our comparable communities. I thought the ones we added particularly related to the schools in other communities, so I thought those numbers were sufficient. Sometimes we look at, big picture, like townwide, and we'll use more broad data like that, like you're talking about. So we can certainly do that. But what we chose to do just kind of articulated, where Dartmouth is at compared to other school communities, and what their, tax levy is, what their population is, things that are relatable to school budgets.
All right, okay.
But I can certainly put that together.
All right, fine, thank you.
At this point, I'd like to, my view, being a member of this board, also of the long-term planning, and little did we think that as a long-term planning committee, we'd be so involved in short-term money about how we spend money the next couple of years in town. My sense of all this, after looking at it week after week, is that the question really is to us and to our residents in town, what do you want for the town of Dartmouth? What kind of school system do you want? And how do we want to pay our employees, and how do we want to insure our employees? The evidence is there. We have the lowest tax rate of anywhere. We have great services. We have great teachers. We have great performance from our schools. But we're doing it at a cost that it's just not affordable any longer. And I look at this as an opportunity for all of us in town, residents, taxpayers, and government and volunteers, to say, what do you want? And if we don't want to spend that money, we'll end up with a school system that's going to go backwards. And if that's what the town votes and wants, so be it. But it's up to us. This is the opportunity for us to sell something that really means something. And I think this is not, whether it be, we downplayed the insurance issue on this presentation. And my view is it's an important part that has to be included. But it's expensive. And there's other things we can do for the insurance to maybe reduce it regarding the high co-pay program or whatever. But there's tweaks to it. But the time has come, and it's going to be expensive to look at how we pay our employees, how we insure our employees, and how we educate our kids. And to me, it's a package deal. And it's expensive, but with a plan, going out these 30 or 40 years, and even speaking with the DPW, looking at the massive projects ahead of us, the sewer treatment plant, $30, $40, $50 million. But you look at that over the next 20 and 30 and 40 years, and Mr. McGinnis has looked at it for us as to what it would cost, how we finance it. It can be done, but it's because it's part of a long-range plan, along with how we insure our employees. So I think this is a real opportunity, and it's a deep, deep dive, and it's expensive. But we have to confront and see where we stand as a community. That's my view.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
One more comment. I'll tell you, people have to realize in the community, if the level of school quality goes down, so does the property value too, at the same time. And that should be emphasized, because that will happen. So that maybe be the persuading point to a lot of people like me who are senior citizens, don't have kids in the school system anymore. I remember arguing with my godparents when I was on the school committee, and they said, well, why should we care? We don't have any kids in the school. And I said, well, guess what? If we have a lousy school system, your houses are going to be worth that amount of money. Right. And that should be emphasized, because, it affects everything in this town.
Ms. Brooks, thank you.
I just wanted to state that Dartmouth Public Schools gives Dartmouth the greatest source of pride. Our athletic teams, our music program, whenever we open the newspaper, that's what we're going to see. On another note, we also have our graduates who are going on into, Ivy League colleges, all colleges, opening up their own businesses, being entrepreneurs themselves, making a difference in our community if they can afford to stay here and live here. We want our graduates to come back and bring their families back here. But we are not the Dartmouth community that I grew up in. It's not the school system that I went to school with. There's far more technology and far more cutting-edge things going on in elementary school than I was exposed to, probably in middle school. But I look at the budget, and I know, because you all know, I worked for the school department, and I'm back at the school department on a tiny basis. But I look at what was offered just a few years ago and what's no longer offered. So instrumental music at the elementary schools, no longer offered. I think that makes me sad. and means that my grandchildren don't get to sign up for a musical instrument until they're in middle school. And it's far easier to play a squeaky clarinet when you're 10 than when you're 12. So I look at that and think, are we losing our quality music program because we're no longer having these experiences at the elementary level? That's just one example. I also look at when I went to school, there was home ec. There's so much that we talk about where the kids can't balance a checkbook, or the kids can't boil water, or the kids can't. But if we're not involving those experiences in school, leveling the playing ground, kids aren't going to get those experiences. And when you look at the budget for the schools, in that budget is not just Dartmouth Public Schools, but we're also paying a fee to Voc and to Bristol Aggie. And having been on tours of both of those facilities, our kids in Dartmouth deserve to have those options. Not all kids are a Dartmouth Public School prototype. They need a vocational experience, or they need the Aggie experience. And we should be promoting them because we want the best for them. And that being said, as Bill said, if our schools are not the best schools that we can offer, then it's going to impact everything else. And when I hear numbers, we like to go around yelling, we're number one, we're number one. When I hear numbers that were 266 out of 322, I don't know, but I don't remember a cheer saying, we're 196, we're 316, we're 30 out of 30. It's time for everyone to just think what community they want to live in. What do we want our schools? And just like tonight, I'm hoping we have an opportunity to hear from the DPW and the other departments to say, what have we done? We have done a lot of, at the town hall, to automate services, to get, to change the way we use human capital. But the school department, it's all about that human connection. We can, we can automate beach stickers and building permits, but you can't do that for long division, and you can't do that for social emotional learning. But I think we need to hear from all of it, because I look at it and say, it makes perfect sense to me, let's write the check now. But in a few weeks, if we have DPW and they make the same presentation and tell me how badly, which I've taken a tour, and it is a little frightening, that I want to flush every day and it to just go away. And I went on the tour and I thought, the day might come when it doesn't happen. And I'm going to hear from them and I'm going to see the same thing. Oh my God, I got to write another check. I need to hear it all. And I get it that I'll pay over 20, 30 years. If I'm lucky, I'll still be alive in 20, 30 years and have that ability to pay for it. But I want to know the big picture. And I think we deserve quality services in Dartmouth, and we have to fess up that that's going to cost us money.
Thank you. Anybody else here?
It's a hard sell. No matter what way you look at it, it's a hard sell.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. We might as well address basically the elephant in the room, and that's the ability for this town to pass an override. That's the thing. And no matter what needs to be done to have a detailed discussion, the pros and cons of the override. People have to understand it. You have to break it down so that it is understandable to everybody. There's going to be a certain segment of people out there that are just going to say no because nobody wants to raise their own taxes. I understand that. I don't want to raise my own taxes. But I also want to make sure that my town does what it needs to do to support its community, the entire community. And that has to be the hard sell, as Stanley had put it. It has to be detailed, and we just can't just go say, well, this is where it's going to go to. We got to show exactly where it's going to do and how the town is going to address it, and it has to be broken down that way. That's the only way it has to be done. And you have to give the people the numbers. To say that the average home is $421,000 and it's going to be $149, okay. I don't think too many of us in this room have the average home Some have a little bit less, some have more. So the house price is $250,000. If this is what it is, this is your cost. This is $350,000. For those who have homes that are $500, this is what it is. This is $700, this is what it is. Our biggest problem, and there aren't that many, as a matter of fact, there's nobody here who could possibly remember this. When 2.5 came about, Dartmouth was only one of 3 communities that did a reval, and we got short. And if I remember correctly, back several years after it was done, everybody was increasing their tax base by 2.5%. Dartmouth was doing it at 1.8. And it's been 1.8 ever since. I don't care what you could say it's 2.5 now, but if you look at the time when everybody was doing it, Dartmouth was at 1.8. We've been behind the 8 ball since day one. Why? Because we chose to do a reval along with 2 other communities. And who those other 2 communities are, sorry folks, that's 30 years ago. I forgot who the hell they were. But you know something, it doesn't matter. All that I know is we're behind the 8 ball. And 15 years around budget time, I've always heard Dartmouth school spending is this. This is where we are. This is where we are. And you know something? 15 years later, 14, 13 years later, it's the same damn story. This is where we are. We're not in the top third. We're not looking to be in the top third. And I know everybody who sits on the school committee would say, if you could give us the state average, they'll be more than happy to take that. But I don't think we're looking to get up to that level. At least we're getting to a level where we need to sustain where we can continue. I mean, this world, and I want to say this world, was dealt a crappy thing 3 years ago that caused a whole lot of problems that we're still going by. You know, people don't want to work. People want to stay home. If people do want to work, they're not getting paid what they think they are. You want to have something built on your home, you want to put something on your home. If you wanted to do it back in 2018, it was going to cost you $2,000. Do it in 2024, it's going to cost you $6,000. The same exact thing. You know, I've got a project I got to do on one of my properties. You know, 5 years ago, it was going to cost $250,000. Right now, it's being banged out at $500,000. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, and it's just absolutely ludicrous out there. And this is what we have to deal with, because we've got real problems out there. We've got real people that are affected, and some of these people just can't afford it. And we have the duty and the diligence to show them, you may not be able to afford it, but in the long term, this is what we need to do. And that's how it's going to be broached. Just to say, well, we need $2.5 million. Okay, no. Why? What is it going to do? How is it going to be spent? And how is it going to be done moving forward? And if we don't have that selling point, this is dead in the water, period.
Anybody else?
Terry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the great proposal to have the finance committee get some, and everyone out in the community to get some questions answered in terms of meeting with the budget subcommittee and really, you know, talking about the stories behind, the details behind, you know, the ask or the proposed budget needs. And we just came out of open session where Mr. Kiley and Dr. Saban McGuire really led a great presentation. And we are, I think, dedicated to continuing to have those discussions each time that we meet. And so I encourage folks to kind of look to view that video just as a background and to continue to engage with us. Dr. Saban McGuire joined us this fiscal year, and she began the convocation at the beginning of the school year by leading an exercise in each and every staff person in the district to talk about why, why they do the work they do, why they work in this district, why we serve. She did this, she engaged the committee in this as well, is why we serve on the school committee, why we volunteer our time. And we each came up with individual answers. And I think it really, for me, it reinvigorated my passion. And I know that our leadership is incredibly articulate and able to and willing to share those details anytime. But the meeting that we had previous to this and that we haven't had discussion on yet was a great reminder that folks are dedicated and passionate and knowledgeable and able to answer those questions. So I encourage anyone to really, and I believe we're going to be bringing it to the community as well, but just as part of our strategic planning about our budget needs, that, the long-term implications and just our shared commitment to do right by the town and the students that we serve. So I just wanted to mention that.
Ms. Ham?
Just a couple of things. So Terry Ham, the first thing is I want to thank the Select Board for commissioning a long-term planning group, which got this conversation going. I want to thank the school committee, the school department, for getting their budget out months in advance of when they normally do in order to accommodate this conversation. I'm happy to see that there are people in the audience because this kind of effort has to be understood by the town. As Mr. Talbaum said, what do you want for a school district? If this decision and this process is left to the people on these committees, you saw what happened last year. It has to be a decision that the community makes, and I think I would recommend that you get the word out, have people come to our meetings. Finance committee is starting to meet every Thursday. School committee has a schedule of meetings. Ask your questions. As Sean said, there's no bad questions here. People need to understand it, but it's very important. And getting this conversation started in December gives us an opportunity to take action rather than waiting until May and June. So it's very, very important, and I hope that people engage.
Thank you.
So I just want to start a little of that tonight, because I 100% agree with what Mr. McDonald said, that we have to start that message. And I think the message needs to be made clear. This is not like a pie-in-the-sky, bells and whistles sort of budget, right? This is to continue doing what we've been doing. And I think it's important to really note that many of the increases that we are looking at are, to Mr. McInnes's point, out of our control because nothing goes up by 2.5%, right? The out-of-district placement, which is up 5%, that's a mandate from the state. We have no control over that. The bus transportation. Districts across the Commonwealth are getting one bid for their bus transportation. It's a problem across the state that we are not going to solve in this community by ourselves, and that is, if we're lucky, 15%, right? As Mr. McInnes noted, Mr. Smith is retiring, and I want to acknowledge the great service that he has done to this community and offering us his legal fees at a really cheap rate. He could have charged us a lot more. We've got to bid that out, and what we're going to find is that Mr. Smith was a bargain. We should thank him for that. So when you look at legal fees going up, it's not because we're hiring 5 lawyers. We have to have legal representation. It is essential for any government to do business, and we've just gotten a bargain for a long time.
We're not getting the hometown discount.
Correct. I will also say, as another example, there are areas where we are not meeting state mandates for instruction, and those increase in the budget represent our efforts to meet our legally required mandates for instruction, because if we don't do that, we're going to need even more lawyers, right? And so I think it's really important to just note that, to Sean's point, right, we need to have a message, and the message is, this is a plan to get us through, but it's not a plan to get us to number 1. It's a plan to help stabilize us and to continue to operate at the services we need. Is it everything we need? No, but hopefully it gets us through.
I'd like to, we've been talking an hour, and I want to make sure that we end up with some kind of direction and a plan going forward. And I can assure you, first and foremost, our long-term planning committee dug a lot deeper than this presentation showed tonight. the last thing that my personal opinion was to make this sound like this is going to be a railroaded override or nothing issue. There are other ways to do it, and maybe there is a consensus for it. But on the other hand, it seems like we have moving in that direction. We've looked at the schedule, what we need to do, because it's tight. We looked at how we have to educate the public, have forums around town, put together presentation to show different values of homes and what it would cost in a range, and also other communities, exactly what you talked about, Bill. So I think that, and it's really a great thing that we're going to meet, the school and finance are going to meet right away to hammer those details out as well. And I think my view is, and maybe Shawnee can pick up on this, I think at this point in time, believe me, whatever we do, the schedule is going to be extremely tight because we have a lot of laws, and the town clerk's the first one to tell you that we have a schedule to keep when it comes to town meeting, special town meeting, votes, et cetera. And my view is that I think we ought to be leaving here with an all-hands-on-deck attitude of how we're going to do it, present it to the public in a way that they, and I don't care how people vote, we have to make sure they're educated and have information, and then it's their vote. And shame on us if we don't get the education there. We have two beautiful libraries. We can have meetings there. We can bring people in. They want to come, great. It's also the winter time. People go away for the winter, but that's the breaks. And as far as I'm concerned, it's an all-hands-on-deck issue. Let's get this, try it, and then we no regrets left. That we did the best we could, whatever the turnout ends up to be.
Yeah, so I would recommend, that's why I had on our little calendar going across, that maybe, I know it's kind of hard to have a joint meeting, but maybe another joint meeting in early January to set a path forward that everyone agrees on, the committees, and start to pursue that. And because if, whatever option we choose, it's going to take a lot of work to, either if it's, cutting staff, we've got to talk to all the departments, and on the municipal side, the school side, to figure out ways to make that as least impactful to the community as possible. But if we're going to pursue an override, there's also a lot that goes along with that as well. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of education, like Mr. Taliban was saying, and the schedule can be very tight. So I would recommend meeting again, is it the 8th?
The 8th, we have a meeting on the 8th. Yeah.
To have a joint meeting, and then, we'll meet in the meantime to kind of refine some numbers, and if there's other options that we can think of in the meantime, although we've kind of done a lot, gone through all the options, but we'll continue to evaluate options.
And maybe sneak in the long-term committee can meet hopefully before then as well to work on those details. Anybody have any other comments?
Well, I just have a comment. I don't want to get ahead of my chair, Mr. Garvin, but we as a subcommittee have planned to meet with the school committee anyway. Would it be part of our charter, if you will, to come up with a plan to submit next time, we meet, which is, say, January the 8th, and it may be tight. I don't know how their schedule is down there for meeting with us, what they want to do, but I think it'd be nice if we put together something to discuss. And just to piggyback on what everybody said up there, I think as long as you show justification to the town in detail, like Sean was alluding to, I think that will go a long way. I mean, if I was town meeting and somebody presented me this, we need that, my first thing I'd raise my hand and say, well, how'd you come up with those numbers? And maybe to, get them ahead of the pass, if you will.
Yep.
We have in front of them, education.
Well, we'll get our questions answered fairly quickly, because if we want to have something for the January 8th meeting, we're willing to accelerate that. But after this meeting, I'll meet with Mr. Kiley and see what.
Anybody else?
The subcommittee, when it can do it.
Okay.
January 8th realistic? Is that a realistic amount of time? That's tight. That's very tight.
Tight for what?
Come back with a plan.
For the plan.
No, to me, whether I have a plan or not, we're going to schedule a meeting to start.
Going to start somewhere.
I think
Follow up from there.
worth trying to meet that date, just because the schedule can be consolidated. So even if it's worth discussing on that date, what the timelines would look like for different options, but, and, then if, everyone decides, there's another calendar option that's palatable, then there's a little more time, but we want to make sure that there's plenty, because this takes a lot of education and outreach to really make sure the community is educated, like David was saying.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Can't thank everyone enough for being here, and thanks for the great discussion.
The short
Somebody
break,
want to
David.
make a
We'll
motion
take
to
a break
adjourn?
for a couple of minutes.
Might have
Before we
to
break,
adjourn.
I'm going to make a motion for the school committee to adjourn out of joint session and to reconvene in open session in room 315.
Okay, we're adjourning. Everybody want?
In the back.
Peter?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Stanley. Flag placement request is next on the docket.
Yes, this is Attorney Savastano's here. I can speak to that.
Oh, good, because I was going to make a motion to refer it to town council.
Yes.
I guess it's done.
Is that a motion?
It will be.
Hi, so
Introduce yourself there.
Anthony Savastano, Town Council. So apparently this request has gone out to a number of municipalities in Massachusetts. So the only thing we have to,
Excuse me, Anthony?
Move
you
that
hear me?
mic, yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
the only thing we need to be aware of is, and I spoke to Mr. McGinnis about this, and I believe the answer is no, have we allowed other entities to fly their flags on our flagpole? My understanding is the answer is no. So if that's the case, you could also, you can vote tonight to do what you want with this request. You could deny it because we have not allowed it for other, I don't even know if we've ever received any other requests. And then Mr. McGinnis and I will be working on a flag policy for you to address in January. But tonight you should just address this particular request.
I mean, we have 3 poles in front of Town Hall, one for the United States flag, one for the state flag, one for the town flag. On occasions, have we flown an additional flag? Generally, the MIAA flag.
Right, but that's the town
But that's a
flying it.
town
That's
flag.
not a private party asking your permission to
And
fly.
they're asking for the other towns, so technically there are flagpoles. Each school has a flagpole, that's town property. Stadium has a flagpole, that's town property. DPW, they have one, No, the fire districts is something entirely different. I mean, you know, I understand, I mean, the very first thing I read into this letter was not so much the why, it was just that we're ready to sue to fly our flag.
Right, and also keep in mind now, if you grant this request, you're going to
You
have
gotta
to grant any other request. You can't.
So, I
pick
mean,
and
whether or
choose.
not you agree with the reason behind it, I mean, the reason is basically it's a pro-choice, but if you're on the opposite side and have a flag.
Pro-life, I believe it's
Pro-life,
pro-life.
pro-life, right. Pro-life versus pro-choice. Pro-choice could want to do the same thing, or, you know, somebody else.
And then you can get extremely fringe groups requesting to fly the flag, and you cannot say no to
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Once you allow it to one, you have to allow it to all.
Correct.
So my recommendation would be that you deny it, and then we work on a flag policy that says only official flags will be flown. I've already looked at some from other municipalities, and we'll be presenting some to the board.
We can deny it because we have not allowed any other.
We have not
flag
allowed
other
in the
than,
past, right. This came out of the city of Boston, where they allowed one, and then another entity requested to fly theirs. They said no, and they were sued, and went all the way up to the.
Boston's a different country.
Well, also, there's a number of towns now that have established policies, so that's that
Exactly.
reason.
And more, as a result of this request, more and more are doing it.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request on the basis that we've never allowed a third party to fly a flag on town property.
Second.
Discussion? Do we want to include the motion that will also establish a law? New
Oh,
law?
well, we could do that. We'll just do
No,
that on a
that's-
separate. That
that's-
doesn't need to be part of this
No,
motion.
that doesn't be part of the motion. You want to include too much sometimes. Just go with the basic motion.
Second motion. Okay. Just that's a question.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that? Ready to vote? We can vote in unison. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I hear none. All set. Okay, next on the docket, Council on Aging Feasibility Study Approval.
Yes, Assistant Town Administrator Chris Vitale is going to present this.
How much is it?
Good evening.
To you.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have a memo from me. Over the last couple months, we have been working with the team over at the Council on Aging to develop a proposal along with Brewster Thornton Group Architect to do a master plan for our Council on Aging. So this was something that was approved as part of the FY24 capital plan. In addition to that, we also got some supplemental funding in the last couple weeks so that we could fully fund this study. The proposal should also be in your packet, and I do also have a representative from Brewster Thornton who's online as well to answer any questions if there's any specifics. But this has been presented to the COA board. They recommended the proposal that's in your packet, and they're eager to get started developing that long-term plan.
Chris, can you just go over the basis of the plan and what it proposes to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'll just kind of go based on how the proposal's outlined. So, looking at the COA, there's a lot of foot traffic in and out of the facility. We have an aging population, so more residents utilizing the facilities. And when we talk about future investment in the department, in their facilities, what does that look like? What programming is going to be needed in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, so that we're supporting our senior population? And do we have the facilities there to meet those needs? So what this study would do is it would look at the existing condition of the building, the configuration, looking at, hey, are there going to be any upcoming capital needs in the next several years? It'll look at the type of programming that's being done, but it'll also look at the type of programming that we may want in the future, or the residents of the community may want in the future. It'll look at space utilization in terms of, hey, using our existing footprint, is there a way that we can optimize and make our programming better? And it would, at the very end of it, come up with an overall plan for the COA in terms of, again, investments in their facility in the future, for future capital requests, future program initiatives or grants and things of that nature, and just be more or less a guiding document.
I mean, because it's necessary, because guys like Joe and me, we don't consider ourselves senior citizens, but man, we're more than eligible. Yeah, we're more than eligible to go there. We're at that age.
He's an old guy.
We're at that age.
Yeah.
We're beyond that, so.
And I think the COA also takes a lot of pride in that, aging is very different than maybe people think it is in terms of the type of clientele going through and the type of services that they're offering. And so I think that's also something that they're taking into consideration as part of their long-term planning efforts.
Right, because it's, I mean, when you start talking about the Council on Aging, everybody thinks, well, it's where the seniors go. Well, it's a little bit more than that. I mean, today they had a trip to, a glass blowing factory in Providence. There were some people that, something to do different. They've got other things. All you need to do is, I didn't go.
Okay, all right.
I know somebody who did, though, and they had a great time. But, all you need to do is take a look at, their monthly newsletter and see what's going on over there. They've got a hell of a lot of stuff going on, and I think I'll be honest with you, I think it's actually underutilized.
Yeah.
It really is.
And that's
one of the key components to that whole thing was the social day program. That's no longer in existence. And I think that's something that maybe needs to be taken a look at too, as to whether or not that can be, revised, or revitalized. But yeah, I think this is something that is sorely needed. Good work. So I'm assuming that you need a motion to expend, how much? Is it 14 out of the 29 that comes to town share, because the town got a grant for 15?
I would vote for the whole amount. The proposals for 29.
The proposals for 29, so, and then it'll be the funds to be between grant and.
It was approved at capital.
Capital,
Mhm.
okay. I make a motion that we approve the
29.
the feasibility study in the amount of $29,000, which would also be used to, from capital accounts and also the grant.
I'll second it.
Any discussion or comments? Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear none. Unanimous. Thank you, Chris. Anything else from you?
He's going to be here.
Potentially next item on the agenda.
We're going to jump to the conservation restriction, 86 Division Road.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Melissa Haskell. I am here with my husband, Jeff Graber. We live at 86 Division Road in Dartmouth. I'm before you tonight because we are requesting your approval on the conservation restriction that we would like to donate and have held by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. State law requires that the Select Board approve the conservation restriction. The Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs has preliminarily improved our restriction. It would be a conservation restriction on approximately 19 acres of the 22-acre parcel of land on which we live. It abuts Destruction Brook Woods. I believe you have a map there to help you locate it, and also a copy of the restriction that was submitted to the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. While the town is not a party to the restriction, I do think that the restriction benefits the town in many ways, and I'd like to highlight three of them. One of them would be that the conservation of this property would help to support the Slocum River Reserve watershed, the Destruction Brook watershed, as well as Buzzards Bay by not allowing for the development of the property, and therefore the runoff and wastewater, and it's really the nitrogen that gets into our system that's a problem, into the groundwater. The other thing is that this property would remain as open space and allow for the continuation of farming on the property. We currently have farmers that hay off the field and use it to feed their livestock. That's been going on for decades at our property, and this conservation restriction would allow that to go on. I'm sure you've all heard from the farmers who would like to keep the farm and farm coast, and one of the things that they've highlighted is needing property available to them to farm. So I would expect that to continue, and it is something the property could continue to be used for. We also have some wetlands on the property that abut the Destruction Brook wetlands and a pond, so that's also important habitat. And our conservation restriction application provides some other detail around the reasons and the benefits for conserving this property. So we are before you tonight asking for your favorable action on our conservation restriction.
It's wonderful what you're doing there.
Thank you.
It's great.
Questions?
Yeah, there's one. Actually, the question is to town council. Have you reviewed the restrictions as to form?
Right here, yeah.
No, we didn't do a detailed review of the restriction itself because the town is neither a party nor does it hold a restriction or own the property. So I spoke to Mr. McGinnis about that. I didn't want to spend time in the town's money reviewing something we really have no stake in other than you approve it.
Okay.
So I did ask Attorney Savastano to draft a letter stating why the select board is approving a conservation restriction with no stake in it. So that's included in the packet as well.
Okay.
Any questions?
Just want to make sure our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I hear none. Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Nice
your time this
presentation.
evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the gift.
Just a word. This farm was began in 1713, and it's preserving a place of history, essentially. But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you.
Stanley, were you around for that fund?
He was.
I was around, yes, yeah. I was just about, I
Still
think I was
going.
6 years old.
Next, we move on. We're signing this document, and we're moving on to the old police station demolition and environmental assessment discussion.
Yes, a few meetings ago, the board asked to have an assessment done of the police station. Chris Vitale, the assistant town administrator, was in communication and followed up on that, so he can
Absolutely
care
not.
and present those findings to the board.
Just two here?
Yes.
I'll let you sign all that first. I'll let you sign it.
You sign this in?
Hello again.
We're not gonna.
No, he signed it.
He said he didn't sign.
No, I signed it. yeah.
Okay. All right then.
Frank didn't sign it.
Sorry. Okay. Mr. Vitale.
Hello again. So again, in your packet, I included a memo that gives a summary, but from the October 30th meeting, there was a request from the select board to seek pricing for an assessment that will look at a couple of different components. So the cost estimate for building rehab, a code review and zoning summary, and recommendations for demolition versus preservation. So in your packet, you again have a proposal from Brewster Thornton. What they did was they reached out to a couple of other professionals, just because this involves a couple of different levels of review from a couple of different specializations, and they've come up with, again, a cost estimate to do that study that was requested. So as part of the information that we provide to them when they were doing this, we provide them with the 2015 study that was done and the evaluation of the cost estimates from that time period. So happy to answer any questions on that.
Cost.
Cost for that was just under $46,000 between the three different firms.
$46,000.
Mr. Mixon?
Okay. $46,000. And we're looking at an override? Are you serious? So, so I want to make everybody, again, note that town meeting voted in favor unanimously to take the building down, period. There are people in this room tonight that were probably in that body that voted in favor of it. So in March of 2014, we had a officer that went to St. Luke's Hospital with Legionnaire's disease. The heating system, the hot water system was corrupt, and therefore this officer had Legionnaire's disease, thus moving the police station to the modular units. But I got to tell you, I remember that day when I got that phone call about that officer being in the hospital, and I went to the police station the next day. So I walked in, the chief was there, and I'm looking at the faces of people that were in the room. I'm looking at most of the officers, men and women, and they had fear in their eyes, sheer fear, frightened to death, wondering who's next. Could it be me? Could it be him? Could it be her? What the heck's going to happen here? Fear. I never, ever in my life want to see that fear in anyone's eyes again from that building. Ever again. If we move forward and we do something with this building, and the same thing happens again and someone gets sick and God forbid dies, it'll be on your shoulders, not mine. The building needs to come down now. No more questions. Tomorrow. We should vote tonight to have Sean McGinnis start the paperwork. Get the building down once and for all. We'll move on. Enough is enough.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. The one thing that has not been discussed in this whole process is what would be the use of the building if we did anything with it? What would be the use? Because I don't know of any municipal offices that need to be relocated there. So would there be a municipal use? Would there be a commercial use? Would it be a housing use?
The historic.
It's in the business district. It's in a neighborhood business district.
But the historic committee had proposed a housing.
Okay, but the question is, I mean, you can propose housing, but you have to have housing that's available, and right now, there hasn't been any new housing programs, popped up in a long time. I mean, maybe there's something out there for veterans transitional housing, similar to what New Bedford has and similar to what's over at the state police barracks. But I'm not sure if there's any programs that are being funded for that. So
the Partners in Housing is doing that project.
They're okay.
Mendes Montero House.
All right. Right, well, they're doing, but that's...
Yeah, but that's in another location.
That's in another location.
Oh, yes, sorry, I thought you meant projects in general.
No, but, I mean, that's the question. I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from and proposing the housing, but, I mean, is it an actual, can it happen? I mean, because, well, I mean,
We're going to have discussion amongst the members first, and I will call on you when we're ready, okay? You don't have to raise your hand. Okay? Fair enough? There's a members' discussion first.
Yeah, this is actually not a classroom.
Right, okay?
I mean, I mean, I voted to demolish the building, because based upon the information that I had at the time. You know, am I that way now? To be honest with you, I'm right on the fence. I'm 50-50. You know, I don't mind authorizing the use of money to do the study as long as there's a purpose for the study afterwards. I just don't want to do it and then say, then we go back to our original decision. I don't want to do that. You know, I want to give the opportunity to do the study. I do. I think, I mean, heck, the building's been empty for years. What's another 1 or 2? You know, hopefully it won't fall apart, but, you know.
Mrs. Brooks?
Shockingly, I'm on the fence as well with Mr. McDonald. I believe at the time I would have also voted to demolish it because the information I had at the time was that it was a sick building and there was nothing we could do about it. But since then, I've heard presentations where there is now the ability to clean up what was wrong in the building and reuse the building. And although I agree, I can't think of a municipal office space being needed, but I would hate to have a building that could be something demolished, only to turn around wishing we had that space. So, unfortunately, to me, it looks like they would have to expend money to have those questions answered.
I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack to thinking it through. I, too, have great reservations about whether the building can be cleaned up properly and be safe, but I'm not in that business. But I also don't think for spending $45,000 to find that out is worth town money. It's a lot of money. And my understanding of the study is it's not only going to find out if it can be cleaned, what that would cost, but also the feasibility of what could go there and the zoning and all that stuff would be included. I'm going to take a different tack and say this. I'm going to make a couple of assumptions. The first one would be, we have a plan that's sort of in the feasibility study range right now, routing a rec center in the back, someplace there. And the first assumption would be that if the police station old building were going to stay, is there egress in and out of that area where the rec center could be built and also keep the building in its place? If the feasibility study could tell me that, I'd be more comfortable, because I'm told that maybe it'd be landlocked, and the only way to get to that rec center would be through that building, which would be gone. So if there's access to get there, I'd find. What I would do, I wouldn't spend the $45,000. I wouldn't spend the $500,000 taking it down. I think we ought to put it up for sale. Period. Not spend a nickel. And then we'll find out what the building's worth. If anybody wants it, and put a tag on it, 6 months, whatever the month, put a time frame on it, not wait forever. If there's great action on it, fantastic. They'll have to deal, whoever buys it's got to deal with restrictions about zoning, about the rec center in the back, whatever, the antenna that's there, cleaning up the building, not my problem. And we can decide at that point in time whether we want to sell it or not, what we want to do. No takers, tear it down. A lot of takers, fantastic, but not spend a penny of the town's money. We don't need any more public buildings. It's not a great location for it. Maybe it'd be great for housing or an office or whatever, but that's not for me to decide. And I would feel better about simply taking it down right away. Give me 6 months to find out, and then make a decision at that point in time. No takers, tear it down immediately. Let the marketplace find out what the worth of that building is, period. You want to say something, young fella?
That's okay.
What's that?
I said if that's okay.
Who said it was okay?
Thank you.
State your name, who you are, and what you do.
Christian Gavush Silvera. I am a resident in the town, Slocum Farm Drive. I'm on a subcommittee with the Historic Commission reviewing this project as a whole, helping guide them as I'm in the design and build industry and real estate industry as well. I have no personal gain or interest in this project. I'm doing it as a citizen because I see a benefit for the town in this project. Number one, the point to solicit a bid for this feasibility study is to show the committee and whomever else that it is possible to remediate Legionnaires and the disease and the costs associated with it. The point of this wasn't to backtrack and talk about the poor officer who got Legionnaires, this, that, or the other. The point was to talk about the cost and the ability for this to occur. That's number one. Number two is obviously we've tried to have talks of reuse, but the committee wanted to see that it was even possible to remediate this problem before we discussed any ideas for what this could be in the future. So here we are trying to have that study done. But the thing is, I know Stanley would like this building to be taken down. This building cannot be taken down until any future plans for reuse are improved in entirety by the town. Per the historic bylaws, they very specifically
Building
say...
is not historic. You've lost that category.
Per
It is not.
Per the town of Dartmouth's historic bylaws, and the building being, a portion of it being older than 75 years old, the building is considered to be historic. Therefore, the building department is to approve the demolition of the building after all future plans for reuse are approved in entirety. Any zoning ordinances, special permits, any of that has to be improved in entirety per the bylaws for the Historic Commission. That's the next point. But I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and I think other members here do as well, because we have spoken to numerous nonprofits, those who deal with housing, senior housing, low-income housing, and it's clear that the town of Dartmouth at this point can't afford more liabilities. It's clear. The money is just not there. And so we feel as though there are a lot of opportunities, whether it be a lease to a developer where the town can still own the land and a developer leases that building and outfits it for affordable housing. I mean, there are different pathways, or if they just sell it completely. There are different pathways that could be explored that could be an opportunity for the town to actually make money rather than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for this building to be torn down. But if the plan is, if the town would like to put a rec center here, and that's what their plan and thought is for future reuse for this parcel, that's fine, but that would need to go through the proper channels first and be approved per those bylaws that you could see listed on the Historic's website. And it would be a very bad look for the town to go around their own bylaws and would create a bad standard for developers, business owners, residents who are trying to get things done in town if the town went around their own bylaws and violated their own bylaws. So.
Okay. At this point, thank you. I'd like to call on. Yep. I'd like to call on Attorney Stavastano to state the town's legal stance on the property. Thank you, Stan.
Good evening again, Anthony Savastano. That's inaccurate. As you probably know, I've sent a letter to Mr. McGinnis, and I reviewed the documents relating to this. The demolition permit application was submitted to the Historic Commission on April 19th, 2023. The bylaw provides for the Historic Commission to provide to the building inspector within 15 days after written determination of whether the building is significant. Historic Commission did not meet that deadline. In fact, it only did so on June 9th, almost 2 months later. So they no longer have jurisdiction, so the bylaw is not applicable. Also, with regard to your comment about selling real estate, that would need town meeting approval, a 2/3 vote of town meeting approval to sell. So you would have to wait to town meeting before you could put it up for sale.
Before what?
Before you could put it up for sale.
Okay.
And town meeting would set the minimum price.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And that's, you just stated the town's legal stance on the building.
Yep, thank you. Yes, the
Any questions?
historic bylaw is no longer applies. The Historic Commission lost its jurisdiction. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Lost its jurisdiction.
Okay. Any questions for us? Attorney from here? Did you ever raise your hand over there, young fellow? Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to fly?
So lady back there.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you. Attorney?
Chris Sewell, DHC Chair. We did address the date and the timeline that was just referred to. The application was not complete in April when it was submitted on the portal. There were pictures that were required. They were not submitted till the end of May. And when they were submitted, then we put that on the next agenda. So the timeline that he was referring to is not accurate.
We have legal counsels advise us differently, and I'm afraid you're going to have to accept it, because we have to accept it. We have no choice.
The portal's time-stamped. So,
Interpretation, we stated, that's why I had him here tonight.
right, and we got the letter at that time, but it was just, there was some missing pieces of information, so I get, maybe he didn't look at the portal and see the timestamp on the pictures, but this can be corroborated by Michelle Vieira, who was the one who actually had to upload the pictures to the portal on, I believe it was May 28th. Thank you.
So what's what?
Going around in
Do they have jurisdiction or not? Anthony,
He's
they're saying that the application, when it was first submitted back in April, wasn't complete. It was completed when they uploaded the pictures. Does that change to the best of your ability, does that change?
Well, it's the first time I'm hearing of it. I get my information from the building commissioner. Said the application was submitted and complete on the date I sent it in the letter.
And that building commissioner's not here. This is ridiculous.
Well, if you listen to Christine's timeline, then...
I mean, first and foremost, this has got to be the first thing that should be discussed and found out is whether or not they have jurisdiction or not. I mean, this is a complete waste of time. We're sitting here twiddling our thumbs, discussing whether or not we want to spend $46,000 or tear down the damn building because we have no goddamn idea who has jurisdiction. This is ridiculous. I'm tired of this crap. Get this information straight and bring it to us. We need to make this decision. Find out who has jurisdiction. Because if it's not time-stamped correctly, they got jurisdiction. If it is time-stamped correction, then we have the jurisdiction. Find it out. This is bull. I'm tired of this. We're trying to make the best decisions based upon the information. If the information isn't correct, how can we make the best information? Get to the point. How can we make the best decision based upon bad information?
Ms. Brooks?
I was going to say we can get this information because it sounds like Michelle Vieira could provide it. And they provided this information and this timeline inaccuracy 2 months ago.
Town council has to figure out, may have that discussion with Michelle Vieira as to whether or not the application was a complete application upon the time of April or not. And then if it's been determined by the building commissioner at the time that it was a complete application, that needs to be found out. I don't want to sit on this for another month. I really don't. Make a motion that we authorize the study for the Old Town Hall / police station in the amount of
something.
No, it's more than that. Yeah, no.
I think it was 46.
Yeah.
880.
With reimbursables.
I would recommend
not to exceed 46.5.
We would need to find a funding source. So I would recommend that you let us find a funding source if we can. You asked for a proposal.
What do we got in free cash left?
I don't know. I mean, we
$2.6 million
unallocated, but we're using
Okay.
that for the,
No, it's been allocated, 46.5.
that would need, let me just think about this for a second.
That's my motion, for the funding to come from free cash.
Could we reallocate maybe one of the ARPA projects that are out there? I'm thinking maybe.
That's fine, too.
We could do that.
That's fine,
Instead
too.
of earmarking free cash.
But which ARPA product?
Well,
You allocated funding for contingencies for
Yeah,
overages.
we have some
so
money
we can bring that
contingency
Okay.
that we could.
And then have it come out of the contingency fund. of
Do we
ARPA.
need to have 3 bids?
That's my motion.
For that?
Somebody's gotta do
It falls
something.
under engineering, you do not have to.
Okay.
So I would recommend that probably be the funding source.
That's fine. That's part of my motion, because somebody's got to do something.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I pretty much think we said enough.
I will vote against it. I'm
I
in
will
favor of
also
selling the
vote
building.
against it.
Selling the building. If it takes town meeting to sell it, that's what I do. So I'm going to vote against it.
No, myself also.
Oh, you haven't even had to vote yet, so.
I know, I'm just telling you where
That's my
you're at.
comment. Okay.
We'll vote it?
And of course, our fifth person is just
Right. Not
non-existent.
So you
So
have a
are we ready to
second,
vote?
but you don't have. it's
Let's
2 to
vote.
2, it's a tie. It can't go
So
through.
basically, right now, we're shaping
Aye.
up to a 2-2 vote, so nothing's going to happen.
Can't allocate
So what's
anything.
going to happen?
We need the attorney, Savastano, to straighten this out once and for all. Anthony, the best you can do within the next few days.
Well, take a motion on the
Going on
vote.
vacation.
We need a vote.
Take a motion on the vote.
We have a motion and a second. We need a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye,
Aye. 2 to 2. Motion is,
Nothing.
nothing,
Zero.
it doesn't go anywhere.
Nothing happens.
Nothing's going on now. All right, Anthony, maybe,
can we accomplish anything in the short term to verify this town?
I'm kind of surprised that this information is being alleged this late in the game when I wrote my letter months ago.
That
any
information
more
came
from these
from
people.
them
really,
I'm not surprised.
same night that we had your letter.
David.
They alleged that then.
Nothing,
The question would also be, in the application process, does it request and ask for pictures at the time of submittal?
already been discussed, we don't need to go over this.
I don't want to say the wrong thing and fly a couple.
Anthony, can you just find out the information, please? Thank you.
But I think, given the timing, that we move this to the January 8th meeting. That gives, do you believe that he can get that information within the next 5 minutes?
Probably not the next 5 minutes.
Well, let's move it to the 8th.
We need to vote on that? To move it to the 8th?
8, no, we have a
No, but
meeting
you
on the 8th.
can,
The 8th of
We
January.
need a confirmation. Do we need a motion for that?
I don't think so.
no.
No.
Okay. So this is tabled to the 8th. We'll get more verification on the timeline.
Yeah, okay,
Any other comments?
no, that's it.
Short and sweet, please. Thank you.
Initially, you had, the select board as a whole had agreed to work in collaboration with the Historical Commission. I don't see any of that in this meeting. Mr. McGinnis was supposed to provide at this meeting a package outlining what the scope of work would be for this environmental and structural assessment. We didn't see that either. So there was direct communication with Brewster Thornton and had nothing to do, and we were not brought in as part of the discussion. We had already started to create a list of companies that do those particular assessments, none of which we understood would amount to something along the lines of $46,000. But that being said, on top of that, I would like to explain to Mr. Mickelson, through the chair, that the building, the town hall at 249 Russell's Mills Road, was built in 1926, which would make it 97 years old if you do the math. Under our jurisdiction, we look at buildings 75 years or older.
Okay. Thank you. One final comment, we're going to finish on the subject.
I want to make it known for the record, too, the night that the Historic Commission voted for this building to be preserved, they brought it to the assistant town administrator's attention that it still was within their jurisdiction. And the first meeting that the Historic Commission had with this committee, they also brought it up that it was within their jurisdiction. So I don't want you to think that me or they're trying to pull a fast one. This is communication that they have been consistently having over all of these months and have felt to have been dismissed throughout all of these months. And so we're just trying to get to the bottom of this and move this issue along. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Select Board meeting schedule.
So we're going to add the March 25th, is that it, to a regular meeting?
Yes. Keep the first if needed. Okay.
Oh, keep the first?
If needed.
All right.
Did someone say that the 8th was on there already as well?
Yes. It is on there, yes.
So is that 3 meetings in a row?
Well, we might not have to have that third meeting.
Well, usually after the election, you reorganize the board.
Right. So
you don't have to have it on the 8th, you just have to, you can have it.
we can always cancel the first, or just want to keep it on the schedule?
Keep it on the first, we may cancel the 8th.
Right.
No, you can't cancel the 8th.
No, not the 8th, you need the 8th.
You need the 8th.
Oh, that's right, for seeing.
You can cancel the meeting before the town election.
All right,
Which is
April
the
1st, April
But
1st.
keep it on the docket just in case.
Right. We'll do
We're
the
adding
25th,
March
so the
25th.
11th and the 25th of March,
You're
and the
moving-
1st and the 8th of
You're
April.
moving March 25th over because it's not a,
Right. There's no mojo.
right, it's not a mojo holiday.
Thank you.
It's a nice holiday, but
It
it's
is a
not
nice name, too.
Yes, it is.
So we are going to meet on the 11th, the 25th, the 1st, and the 8th, and the possibility of adjusting maybe one meeting as we get closer to it.
We're actually meeting January 8th to 22nd, the 5th of February, the 5th, 12th of, the 12th of February, the 26th of February, March 11th, March 25th, scheduled for April 1st and April 8th. That's the
However,
schedule.
given the discussion earlier tonight about our financial situation and the timeline, we may need all of these meetings.
For sure.
So
I
Sean,
think we
can
should
you,
keep 'em on the
can you get that
schedule.
updated to us?
Yes, I'll send that
Right.
out tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
All set on schedule? Any questions? Okay. Next, license renewals.
Boy. Hey,
Anthony, stick around, I got a question for you on this.
Okay.
So, wait a minute, what about, Mr.,
We'll take these in sections.
why don't we,
Well, actually, why don't you find out,
You here for?
Joe's,
Joe, are you here for your license renewal?
I believe he's here.
the violation letter, you had a violation letter, is that what it is?
No,
No?
we had complaints about the property on Sherbrooke Road. Was, at the time we got the complaint, it said that they were doing junk work, there were cars and boats there, there was not allowed use on the property. We knew Mr. McConnell had a license, so we have him before the board to talk about that property.
Can you get up? You have to get up.
Introduce
Sorry.
yourself, the microphone.
Joe O'Connell, owner of Joe's Cycles. Went to Dartmouth school all my life. Been a Dartmouth resident all my life. And I plan on staying here, unless you throw me out. Anyway, I just want to know what a rental property has anything to do with my dealer's license that I've had for 48 years. Can somebody explain how they're connected? Okay, if you can't explain that, the other thing on 40 Sherbrooke Road, somebody from the building department sent a letter saying that there was a problem there, a registered letter, and they did not send it to my home address. They sent it to the address, the rental address, which I never got.
40 Sherbrooke Road?
Correct.
Is that it, right?
That's a rental address. I have pictures right now. The property has no vehicles on it that don't belong to it. There's no junk vehicles. There's no unregistered vehicles. Just so you know, I'm not asking for another 30 days because I just got the letter from Melissa on last Wednesday, which is a few days ago, and I was told that it was beyond the 30 days, well, beyond the 30 days, if I never got the letter, how can I know it's 30 days? But anyway, the property is all cleaned up. There's no unregistered vehicles on the property. I have a couple of pictures if you want to see it. If you want to send somebody out there, if there's anybody working for the building department, that's fine. They can just drive by there if they want. They can call me. The other thing is, I was supposed to, I went to the building department also on Friday to pick up the letter, and I was told that Mr. Bailey was only working on Fridays, and he's the one who put the letter out, and he would be calling me. This was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That he would be calling me before the end of the day to explain what was going on, and I could explain to him that I didn't get the letter, and he never called me, which is a little communication breakdown. So anyway, the property is all cleaned up. If you want to go by and look at it, fine, you can just drive by up the street, and there it is. You know what I mean? There's no junk vehicles, there's no unregistered vehicles, and I got pictures right here to show you tonight, if you'd like to see them tonight. I'm doing what I can. I'm not trying to avoid you guys.
I mean, my neighborhood, I've lived there. I can attest that whatever was on the property has been moved over the last week or two because I've seen it going by, you know, but what I don't, and the first thing when I looked at the letter, the first thing I did, I noticed the address. I'm saying, that's not Joe's home. I mean, you know, again, this is, I don't know how this happened, but when you look at the assessor's field card, it has the owner of the property. Joe's home address is on the field card. That's where the letter should have gone, because this went to the tenant. The tenant just probably put it off to the side, didn't do anything about it. So Joe, I mean, I'm not gonna blame Joe on this one at all, you know? And my understanding is the tenant is leaving, so they're no longer gonna be a problem in the neighborhood.
It is all clean, just so you know.
Yeah. So, you know, again, this is something that, you know, I don't know who wrote the letter, but, I mean, clearly, if you look at the field card, the address of the homeowner who owns the property is on the field card. It should have been sent to his home. You know, it's just,
So it's signed by Ed Bailey, but there's no guarantee he
there's no
wrote it.
Who wrote it? So
Somebody else could have put it together, but it
this
does
is a-
have a
This is a
number.
mistake, but Joe's, you know, this has nothing to do with Joe's license. Joe's
No.
license is down to the property on Ellswick Street. That's the property that, if there's an issue with Joe's license, that's the property we look at. Just like the same thing with anybody's license, it's the property that the license is attached to, nothing else.
And that would be the address to send a complaint to, is my business address, if it was a business property.
Right.
And the other one, I agree, it should come, either the business could come to my home too, because that's on record. My home address is on record also. So I agree with you there.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I can do, it's all cleaned up. It will not happen.
Hey, Joe.
Do we need to confirm that property, we're okay with it?
No,
you have to write
that's up to the building inspector at this point.
Well,
We're just voting on the license.
We're just voting on the license on his license on Ellswick Street.
Okay.
That's where his place of business is.
And that's good. It's clean.
We don't have any complaints.
Right.
Unlike one that we do, which I need Anthony's
Yeah, well,
counsel.
let's get going on this.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
All set?
Yep.
All right, so,
Are you going to vote on a license?
yeah, we're gonna go through the licenses now, Joe.
You're all set, Joe.
But there's a tickler list. Just stick around.
Yeah, it's not.
Why
for you-
not?
it's
You're
not-
here for a while.
You're not part of it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
There's no hockey game tonight, so you're all set. No.
You want to read through these, Sean?
Yeah, I'll read them through.
Yeah.
All right, so the alcohol license renewals, all are subject to police chief, fire chief, and director of inspection services approval. Restaurant, wine and malt beverages, common vic, Jimmy's Pizza.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, I hear none. Unanimous.
Packaged goods store, all alcoholic, Dartmouth Wines and Spirits.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, I hear none.
Packaged goods stores, wine and malt beverages, Route 6, beer and wine.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, let's vote. All in favor,
Aye.
please say aye. Opposed, I hear none. Unanimous.
Okay, motor vehicle license renewals, all are subject to police chief, fire chief, and directional and inspectional services approval. I'm going to skip to Class 2 licenses first. Dartmouth, Class 2 licenses, Dartmouth Collision, Elite Auto Sales, FM Auto Sales, Dartmouth Motors Auto Sales, Inc., JEM Motorsports, Inc., Better Auto, Bliss Express, Route 6 Auto and Marine, Joey Auto Sales, APC Auto Body, Inc., Byrider Dartmouth, Modern Auto Body, Joe's Used Cycle, Tom's Auto Sales, Vashon Motor Company, Brum's Ultimate Repair, M&M Auto Service, Mike's Auto 2, Inc., Ideal Motors, Inc.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I hear none. Unanimous.
Class 3 license, Acme Auto Salvage, Will's Auto Wrecking, Gabriel's Auto Parts, Brum's Ultimate Repair.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear none.
Joe, you're all set. You're all set. All right,
You too.
Mr. Savastano.
Let's go back to Class 1, right?
Class 1 license. Earlier this afternoon, the board received copies of a complaint from a consumer agency on one of the applications. I guess those complaints are under investigation by the Attorney General's office or whatnot, whatever it is. Does that have any bearing on an application for a Class 1 licensed motor vehicle renewal by this board? Can that be taken into consideration by this board, or because it is because basically if we do not, if we don't grant the license, we're basically denying them the right to do any business in town? And it'd be based upon those consumer complaints.
You could approve it for a period of 2 months or something, to see if something comes.
But the question is, I don't know how long it'll take the Attorney General to investigate, and we may never know what the results of those are.
How'd you find out about it?
Somebody from the city of New Bedford sent something to us regarding that. I guess the city of New Bedford has a consumer council thing. They got it from the Attorney General's office, sent to us.
So can't we just do this, approve it tonight, and if anything shows up through the Attorney General's office of some type of punishment?
If something egregious, it's a violation of the law or the conditions of the permit. I mean, I guess you could put some conditions of the approval on there if you want. We've talked about that in the past, conditioning approvals.
Well, I mean, basically, it's business practices. It's the way they conduct, I'm going to say it's the way they conduct business or rectifying a consumer complaint. You know, I don't.
Well, there's some
I
allegations.
don't think we can deny the license based upon that because there's been no outcome to any of the charges, per se. You know, I mean, it's just, I mean, you're not taking care of business and doing something dumb to a consumer and having it out there. It's just not good for your business, period. Because it will get out there, you know, one way or another. But, I mean, I don't think we can deny the license.
It's approved with a condition that they not be found civilly liable for,
Well, even then, do we have the authority to, even with that, to take their license?
you can condition licenses if they violate the condition, yes.
Right.
Just like we
Well,
did with,
so-
class 3, where the condition that they clean up property.
Right.
So we can't even put a timeline on it because it's out of our control.
No, the timeline would be the duration of the license, correct?
If there's a condition, and if the condition is violated, then come back and you can revoke the license.
But
I don't know anything about what the allegation is, so for me to define that condition would be difficult. You say conditional upon them not being found civilly liable for X, Y, or Z. If they're found civilly liable for X, Y, Z, they violated a conditional license, you call them back.
All right, you want something else on your plate?
I think that's a waste of time. I think it's, if we can, pending litigation, outcome of litigation from the Attorney General, we then have to act on it
But
based
you
on.
have to make sure, that if you're gonna put a condition on the license, that it's, number one, it's something that the town can put legally.
Well, that's what I'm
I just
asking.
don't wanna put a condition on the license and then.
But I didn't say
you know,
put a
saying that
condition.
They don't have to.
No, I didn't say put a
You know?
condition. But I think we need to recognize there's an issue there. But the guy, he deserves his day in court. If there is litigation that turns out to be correct, then we have to take action at that point in time.
Right.
It could be fairly egregious.
Yeah, you'll get a copy.
All right, well, all right, at this point in time, I'm inclined to grant the license. And then if anything comes out of it that rises to the level of revocation, then I don't have a problem doing that. But I do want to say this, giving us this information at, several hours before the meeting really isn't the proper way of doing things.
That's when we received it,
I
so
know-
I
know
thought
you
I'd send it to the
received it.
board.
I know, that's,
Not their
it's not our fault, but, because it just puts, it's a bad look.
The whole thing is.
Yeah,
But
so
we may have a liability. That's what Anthony has to tell us.
Yeah.
How do you suggest we deal with it? Period.
I don't know the allegations, so it's kind of hard for me to say. If I knew the allegation, I might be able to give you some more specifics.
So I'm inclined to just.
We still have an option
grant
that
the
somewhere
license
down the
and if
line
there's a
to bring them
revocation.
in if it is egregious. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we grant the license, but write to this person and tell them we have this and we?
No, I don't want to.
I'm asking a lawyer, not you.
I don't want to do that.
Can
we
we,
write to the
can we
business?
write to the person, this business, and say, we have this allegation? We're granting you the license, but we're gonna watch it in some form.
No, we could bring them in on another vote and grant it on that night and tell them.
I didn't hear what he said.
I said you can invite them into the next meeting, postpone this to the next meeting, invite them in and have them address the issue, and then you can tell them we're granting this license, but yeah.
But it's not our issue, it's it's Attorney General's
Right,
issue.
but I'm saying, that's the only way that I can see that you can tell them that you're gonna
Okay.
revisit it or revoke the license if something.
I'm not saying we revoke the license. So you're saying just not do anything and wait?
Well, I mean,
I'm saying you wanted to communicate with the applicant, you can require the applicant to come here at your next meeting and postpone the approval of the license till then, to have that discussion with the applicant.
if you're not meeting till after the first of the
Yeah.
year, the license expires on the 31st. They would not be able to
I'm not in favor of
operate.
revoking his license at all at this point. I don't think we have that.
Can we vote to extend the current license 8 days?
Anthony?
What say you? I mean, we don't know much more about the
I s- my-
Honestly, you should probably, if there's no other reason not to grant it, then you probably don't have the factual background anyway, you have allegations.
I'm inclined to grant the license.
just go and then we'll see what transpires.
Okay, motor vehicle license renewals, Class 1, Colonial South Chevrolet, Colonial Honda, JEM Motorsports, Inc., Kia of Dartmouth, Colonial South Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Battleship Harley Davidson.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear none.
In-holder license renewals, Baymont Inn and Suites, Best Western Dartmouth, Residence Inn Dartmouth.
Motion to approve. A second, sorry.
No, you made the motion.
You need a
Ms.
second.
Brooks, I need a second.
Sorry,
Okay.
second.
Do it, I'm ready to go home.
Let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Jerking around.
All in favor of the motion for the license renewals on in-holder?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Opposed, I hear none. Passes unanimous.
Amusement Tilt.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, I hear none.
Common vic licenses that have been approved for 2024, Palace Pizza, Panera Bread, Java Shack, Starbucks Coffees, number 27533. Tropical Smoothie, Just Another Phoenix, Chipotle Mexican Grill, number 1855. Friendly Ice Cream Restaurants, Sodexo at Acushnet Ball Plant, number 2. Killer Bees, New York Bagel, Dartmouth Percy's Place LLC, Five Guys, Lebanese Pita Pockets, Jersey Mike Subs, Taco Bell, Burger King, 3975, Dunkin', 255 State Road, Dunkin', 823 State Road, Dunkin', 550 Russell's Mills Road, Dunkin', 465 Florence Corner Road, Mirasol's Cafe, Yummy Station, Caddyshack Inc., The Wendy's Company, Playa Bowls, Subway, 380 State Road.
Motion to approve.
No, they've already been approved.
Oh, they were, yeah.
Mhm.
McDonald, did you still want to stay, or was that the question?
That was the question. You can go home.
Oh, Anthony. Anthony.
You too.
Administrator update.
Okay, we are moving on. Next, Town Administrator update.
Yes, so the town received an $8,725 community compact grant to update the boards and committees database that we have in town. So thanks to Chris Vitale, the assistant town administrator, and Sarah Haskell Aruda, the town clerk, for working together to apply for that and also get that awarded. We were informed Friday that the sheltered families located at the Baymont will be relocated out of town on December 20th. So I'm not sure. There will be no families brought back to the Baymont, but we still have families at the Best Western. CERTA is extending their program they had last year called Tri Transit. Starting January 1st, there'll be free fare service from January 1st to June 30th. They're looking to grow ridership. That was due to an increase in state funding. The Russell's Mills Road pickleball courts are complete. They came out great and they're well utilized already.
I've already seen them.
Yeah. New guardrail has been installed in front of Town Hall last week. Yes, it came out great. It reassures the staff that are in those basement offices.
Yes.
So.
First floor offices.
Yes.
Has his
We don't
duty.
have basement offices.
Basement
First floor offices.
The Dartmouth employees have won the Maya 10K a day challenge. This is a walking program that ran for 4 weeks from September to October. Dartmouth had nearly 50 Dartmouth employees registered for the program, and they joined 9 other Maya towns in the competition. Each town location will be receiving a snack delivery on Wednesday, December 13th, healthy snacks.
Great.
Donuts.
Yep.
I want my donuts.
Always healthy.
That's all I have.
Boring.
Sorry, Duncan. Okay. Can you say donuts? I guess you can't say it. I'm sorry. Take it back.
What do you call it?
Healthy donuts.
Oh, good.
All set? Oh, okay.
Old business, Bliss Corner, no new updates. Lake Nokichoke, no new updates. Same with municipal broadband and Mass DEP Title V amendments, no new updates.
Okay, as far as the minutes are concerned, we have some issues on those, so we're going to have to postpone our approval of those minutes until the next
You
time.
need to take a look at the heading.
Headings, yeah.
Stanley is not the vice chair.
Stanley was identified as, he held every seat in
Yeah.
on the board.
Yeah.
So we should just,
Terrific, isn't it?
do we make the vote on, and change it, or can we wait till next
Oh,
time?
they're going to change it.
You're going to wait till you're going to lose your
We can
flight.
update it.
I'm not going to lose it. Come on, let's go already.
Update it next time? Okay. Comments?
Oh, God, no. First of all, I want to apologize for my outburst.
All right, don't worry
We
about
like
it.
emotion.
It's-
We
we're all
like
set.
we like
We're
passion
all
around
set.
here. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Next.
I'm probably going to catch,
Okay, don't worry about it.
well, she's
Well,
at
hopefully
she's at the
your wife
concert,
was
so
at the concert. She
she's at the
missed your
concert, yeah, she's at the
display.
concert, so she didn't
But
see
she
it.
heard you screaming, so with that
Yeah.
being said, is there
It
anything
int-
else to be said?
I know Stanley wants to get out of
I
here.
want to leave.
You shook me up a
Will you
little.
make the motion to,
Ms. Brooks, you got anything to say?
I was just going to announce, sorry, we'll wait one moment, Stanley, that if folks in the listening audience are looking for things to do to get in the holiday spirit, tonight was the holiday concert of the orchestra at the middle school. All this week will be chorus concerts, band concerts, this week and next at the middle school and the high school. Check out the DSMA website for that information. And another source of Dartmouth pride, our winter sports season has started, and check out the DHS athletic page to see when you can see some of our sports in action. So that's my bit.
Anything else? And we will not be meeting until after the holidays.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
Motion
And
to
happy
adjourn.
Hanukkah.
We have a motion to adjourn. I have a second.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that motion? Let's vote. All in favor? Please say aye. Opposed? I hear none. This meeting is adjourned.
Did you also-